Hey folks, you're live again on Phototherapy Live. How you doing, Rick?
I am doing great. It's great to see you. Great to see Alec. I think we need to change the music for the holiday season.
Oh yeah, we
Uh,
need a good music Christmas jingle.
yeah, we definitely need a Christmas jingle, and we want to thank our viewers from around the country, around the world. We've been doing this since about March. It's so much fun, and we really want to thank you for your support. And Alec, we have some pretty cool news today on the show, right?
We have some absolutely amazing news when you think about it on this being December 3rd, and will launch you launched the phototherapy Facebook group February, March of last year. We have welcomed our 3,000th member. So
Wow.
welcome to member 3000, 3001. And to all of you that have joined us along the way, thank you. It's very exciting. I know, Rick, for you to be at this number for all of us.
Well, it is exciting, and Juan has really made the technology. He's a technology whiz on this. People learned this back when we did the podcast like 10 years ago. I just show up, and this is great. This is why I love working with Juan. I could just show up. He has the computers, the switches, and all this stuff. So Juan, thank you so much. I think we have a great team, and our moderators.
Yes.
We would not be at this level if we didn't have the moderators. And we got a note recently. Actually, we get a lot of notes. Saying how much this means to people. So it really does mean a lot. So what we did, we started out with this, Juan and I guess back in February, March, as you said, Alec, we started out showing our pictures, and then we switched, I think about 2 months ago, to just showing only phototherapy of Facebook group members' pictures. And we're so inspired by these. And, it's humbling. Wouldn't you say, Juan?
Oh, absolutely. Every time I go through to pick up images or pick out images that we're going to show, and I have my camera right next to me, it's almost like I want to dunk it in a pool of water.
Well, the pictures are so good. They're so inspiring. And for the last couple of weeks, we've been doing like tough love and tough love. In other words, Juan's picking pictures that he loves, and then he gives some other ones that need some tough love. And then I do the same. So I've been going first, and for the past couple of weeks, this week, Juan is going to go first. But before we get to that, I'm sharing my screen here. These are really tough times for a lot of people around the country. Feeding America is just one place where you could donate to a food bank. So if you have a few extra bucks, like $1 goes a long way. $10 goes further. Alec, I know you donate to your local food bank, and that's a very rewarding feeling for you, right?
Absolutely. Just I know a lot of people personally who are involved with some organizations who are doing great work, and I'm trying to be fair and equitable in supporting them. But yes, absolutely.
Well, good for you. So anyway, we're going to do the love and tough love. But before we get to that, before we came on, we were talking about, Alec brought it up. And Alex, since you brought it up, why don't you say what you were saying without naming names? But maybe some people could guess who, guess the pro.
No, we were just, I just was catching up with a friend a couple days ago, and he was telling me about his experience going through a critique that he was very excited about having. And when it was all over, he, like Juan, wanted to pack his cameras away, never to touch them again, because it was a tough critique, and a critique with no love. I think that's the best way to put it. As I talked him back through the lens, and he started shooting again after we got off the phone, and to prove it to me, he sent me a couple of images that I thoroughly enjoyed. But it's just very important that we're all here, and this ties into something that Linda and I are going to be sharing with the group in the weeks to come. A little prize or present that we have for the members that we're going to be sharing in January. But we're all here to learn and grow. And you don't learn, you don't grow in an environment where you're criticized, right? Criticized without any empathy or compassion.
Right.
And, it can really discourage, any of us from doing our best, trying harder, and just taking that step to the next level. So that's why I think the way that you both are doing it here is just a healthy way, to
Well, I
help
mean,
our
it's all
members
about
get better.
constructive criticism, right? I mean, that's the way we learn. We learn with, you can't just say, this is no good, and not give an explanation why it's no good. Every image, I believe most images, I wouldn't say every image, but most images always have some kind of, redeeming quality to it, or something that's good about it, or something that is interesting about it. It's all about, focusing on the thing that makes the image, great, or the good parts of the image. So in providing that constructive criticism, I think, is the most important part. If you don't provide constructive criticism, then you shouldn't be doing this, because people are not going to learn, right?
Absolutely. And Alec, the person you're talking about is an amateur photographer, correct? And his pictures were reviewed by a fairly well-known photographer who specializes in a certain field, right?
Correct. Yeah, he was thrilled to have one of his idols, if you will, one of his inspirations to shoot the type of photography that he shoots, do the critique, and it just did not it did not go well, but he has found his footing, found his voice, and he's back on track.
Good. Well, I guess enough said about that. But if you talk to your friend, but I could shoot him an email because I know he is too. Let's ask him not to reveal. This could be like, this could be like The Masked. On TV they have like the Masked Singer, the Masked
Singer. Yeah.
This could be like the Masked, photo reviewer.
But one thing before we get started, Rick, that I do want to mention is just how gratifying the experience was for our friend Ramesh on Sunday. Wow. In terms of the comments that came in, during, his presentation, the people that have watched afterwards, and just I can see the activity as he's increased more and, has shared more of the images he shared in the presentation. And it's when things like that happen, and and the note that you shared with all of the moderators this past week, that really just, pull all this together. And just make me feel good about it.
Well, thank you for being the technological wizard for lining up the Ramesh Raja interview. He was amazed, the master of light and shadow. So we're going to be doing more of those pop-up sessions. So Juan, I have your love pictures. You're going to start with love, right? And then go to tough loves. So let's take it away, Juan.
So these are the images. I went through the images that have been posted over the past couple of weeks and picked up a number of the images that I really enjoyed and I liked. Some are things that I would shoot, some things that are not things that I would necessarily shoot. But I really love this image because of, the sharpness as well as the softness that I feel in the image. It's kind of that diametrically opposed feelings when you look at this image. And what I mean by that is how sharp and crisp the image is. I can see all the contours, all the texture on the bottoms of those petals. And I believe this is probably a hibiscus plant, if I recognize it correctly. But at the same time, knowing how soft that underside of those petals are. The depth of field is absolutely stunning. It's, everything that we want to see, we can see in this image nice and clearly. And it really just pops out because of the colors, the contrasting colors of that yellow versus the green. The great thing about this image, one of the things I really like about the image, and I think what makes it work so well also, is you can see how simple the image is. When we look at this image, it's very clear to us what it is that we're supposed to be looking at, what this image is all about. And even though it's centered, it works really well because it does contain quite a bit of movement within the scene. My eye keeps following some of these lines going to the left and going to the right, going back down to the bottom of the image and follow those lines up again. So very well done, Karen, I think it is, right?
Let me check. Let me check. Yeah, Karen. I would agree with you. Actually, I was going to pick this picture and the next picture that you picked. That's why we go one at a time and then we share before we go on. But what I really like about this picture also is the angle. You know, how many pictures of flowers people photograph them from the front or the top or the side. Photographing from underneath. This is like an uplifting picture, especially in these crazy times. This is like, for me, it's like showing some hope. So again, I'm putting a feeling on this still image, but I also like the way the green is at the bottom, and the green and the orange work together. And I would agree with everything else you said about the softness and the depth of field. And we always say expose for the highlights, and we still have some detail here. And we have some examples in my tough love ones where the highlights aren't correctly exposed, where they're overexposed and washed out. And that's a no-no. So anyway, I would have picked this one, and I would have picked this one too.
Oh yeah, this is another one that I really, really enjoyed by Frank. And as we enter winter, this kind of reminds me, the areas that are around my house right now. We have a couple of little streams and rivers that I visit during the winter and see these exact scenes. And I love the fact that it's not, completely covered in snow. We just have a nice light dusting of snow, so we can still see a lot of the texture on the ground. We can still see a lot of the features of the trees, the color of the trees as well, because oftentimes when we have these huge, dumps of snow on these more open landscape shots, we lose all that detail, and we all just see big areas of white. I think that when we have big, strong storms or heavy snow, that's the time when you actually kind of get a little closer in and tighten your shots some. But when you have these light dustings of snow, you can actually shoot these wider landscapes. I love the line that the water is following. I love the lines of the tree. I really like the tree that's leaning over the water, and how it merges with the reflection down at the bottom. So nicely done, Frank. I really enjoyed the image. As much as it makes me cold, and I don't want to be cold. Today we actually upped our, after 2 years of being in this house, we've decided we're going to up our thermostat by 2 degrees.
Oh, so what are you at now?
Yeah, we're at 68 now. We've been at 66 for the past couple of years. So
really,
wow,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're at 68. Well, Frank, congratulations to Frank. This is a 14 image pano stitched together, he said, in Lightroom. And Lightroom and Photoshop do an amazing job now, stitching pictures together. But some people, the comments here, where he got 17 comments on there, he got a lot of likes, and people say it's worth the effort. And it's just not a wide angle shot. It's just a beautiful pano. And when I take a landscape picture, I say most of the times I want everything in the scene in focus, from what's near and what's far, because it looks like it looks to our eyes. So seeing everything in the scene in focus here, and the composition, like you said, Juan, with the tree tilted like that, and the reflection, I think is just Valerie said breathtaking, so worth the technical effort, and artistic too. So that's actually a good combo, right?
Right.
Frank is skilled technically, but he's also like an artist. So really, really a nice
Hey,
shot.
Rick, so we got a question here from Bonnie. She was asking, why would you do so many images to a stitch? And I probably wouldn't do that many images to a stitch, 14 images, but some people love to be able to have all that detail that they can look into. So you can zoom in if you have this full-size image here and see I bet you can see every single little pine needle on these trees. Also, if you're going to print it really large, having that detail in there can also make the image that much more interesting. 14 images seems like an insane number of images. I maybe do 3, maybe 4 images, but to each their own. If Frank enjoys doing the 14 images, I think that trying to stitch 14 images would probably make my computer go up in smoke.
Well, you know what? It looks like he's a professional photographer or a serious amateur. So say he puts this on the web and someone wants this for like a billboard in Singapore that's going to go 12 feet over, some area in a hotel. He has the pixels to do this, right? Yeah. So if you see a scene like this, I would say maybe you don't need that many, but capture as much data as Juan was saying, much data as possible, so you could make a large print. The other thing is this: he has the 14 images. He probably has at least 6 images in there. Maybe just from like where the tree's leaning, crop off to the left. He has other images in there, where you could do like maybe a square in the middle. So really a good, and that's a good. I'm glad he brought that up. That we brought. Well, that he brought it up. That Juan brought it up. That we have all that data.
Well, the other thing I was thinking, it looks like he shot this, looking here, the Olympus EM1 Mark II, and I was just looking at that image to see how many megapixels it is, right? So, and I think that may have been a 24 megapixel camera. So, by doing that, by doing the stitching, he'll get that many more megapixels. I'm shooting now with a 60 megapixel camera, so I don't have to shoot as many images and get the same kind of resolution as Frank was getting. So just something to think about.
Yeah, you could take the same picture probably with a 14 millimeter lens on a full frame digital SLR, and crop it, but you're not going to have that much data. Okay, Sean Boyle has been here before.
Yeah, I love this image. I love the mood and the feeling of this image. Again, I don't know why I keep picking these cold images. These 2 images have been kind of cold scenes, but I love that this different perspective, of this bridge with the clouds above, the blueness of the scene that makes it so cold, and the little bit of ice that we're seeing. And again, this is a long exposure. That's why you're getting that nice creamy water, as well as getting those clouds kind of more softer and not as sharp as you would expect them to be in a shot like this. But this rock in the foreground has so much character to it, so much detail and texture to it, that it does add a lot to the scene. And, because of the lines in the rocks, it also guides my eye to the bridge in the background. Now, the question is, what's the primary subject in this image, Rick? What do you think is a primary subject? Is it the foreground or is it the background?
Well, I think it's the bridge, but we've had a lot of pictures like this on the phototherapy Facebook group page, where we say crop out the rocks on the bottom, or darken the rocks, or blur the rocks because they're taken away. But here, like you said, they add to the scene. So I think maybe the scene is the subject. It's just not one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the image, it works either way, with the rocks or without the rocks. You could do, a horizontal crop of this image of the bridge with the water and those beautiful clouds above, or have it like you have it now, the portrait with the rocks in the foreground. I think both of those images work. And he did an incredibly good job here with that depth of field. In a situation like this, it can be challenging to get this much depth of field in the scene. There's basically 4 factors that affect your depth of field. From your lens, your focal length of your lens, how far away your subject is, your aperture, as well as your sensor size. So you have to take all those things into consideration. And I don't know if Sean also may have done a focus stack here as well. And that's another thing that you can do in a situation like this, because we have these elements that are so far away and everything looks so sharp. I would dare guess that he did a focus stack on this.
I've never done focus stacking. How about you, Juan and Alec?
I've done focus stacking. I don't do it that much, but there's certain times where it does become really handy.
Yeah, I certainly, to Juan's point, could see why you would want to use it here, and how you could use it here.
Yeah.
Phyllis writes in the chat that the rocks form the beginning of the curve leading up to the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting take, and I'll just say that when I look at it, I love the darkness of the sky, and then the balance with the darkness of the rock, right? And you peer through that darkness and the light over the bridge. I mean, there's just so much going on in that image. It's very well done.
There's so much in it. It's just a beautiful. The colors are great, and the mood and the feeling is all there. And that's what makes a lot of these images, that mood and the feeling, right?
Well, speaking of that, the next one has a beautiful mood too, even though it's like super sharp.
Oh yeah, I love this image. This looks like a Chinese mantid, which is a an invasive species in the U.S.,
Mhm.
but very common. And those are the ones like if you ever, most of the time when you see mantises, they're kind of the Chinese mantises, and they're the big ones. The native mantises in the U.S. are a little smaller, but just absolutely gorgeous. Colors on this, the uh, the location of the image. This is just an absolutely beautiful portrait shot of a mantis. The fact that he put it on this sort of reflective black surface
Yeah.
really focuses our eye and allows us to see so much detail on this mantis. Again, that focus, that nice deep depth of field, which is going to be hard when there's a subject like this, because I bet you this guy didn't stand around very long. He probably had to keep repositioning to get the right shot, and get the lights in the right angle, and not make sure he doesn't have any reflections on the reflective surface that the mantis is on. And we can see so much detail on this image. It's absolutely delightful to look at. And I know I love, as you can tell, I love insects, and I love photographing this kind of stuff. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Not many people like bugs like this, but I think it's just really, really cool.
Well, Alec, Scott Kelby, he's not a big fan of bugs. I was on the grid
No.
once and we were reviewing pictures, and he's not a big fan of bugs. But as my father would say, to each his own. But getting back to this picture, I think it's I've seen a lot of pictures of praying mantises, on leaves, on bushes, on flowers, or whatever. But I haven't seen a portrait like this. Joel Santoria, have you been following his work? He's documenting all these
It's called the photo
species.
arc.
The
Yeah, the
photo
photo
arc
arc.
again.
Yeah.
So he's photographing animals against a white background. So this, the background, adds so much, as some of the bird pictures and some of the other wildlife pictures that are coming out. The background adds so much. I think the black background here really adds to the drama of this scene. This picture definitely
And
has
the lighting is amazing. Don't you
lighting.
think? They did an
Yeah,
incredible job with the lighting.
Now this is like, it's just beautiful. It's just nice, even lighting, and the gesture of the face like that.
Mhm.
It's very, very cool. So Joe, Thibert, it looks like Thibert.
Yeah.
Very good job.
Very nice stuff. Very nice.
Very
job.
nice. Okay, we're still on the ones that Juan loves.
Yeah, again, we've seen images like that. Again, feels a little cold, but it feels like in the morning. There's so much detail and so very little detail at the same time, just like we did with the first image that we looked at of the hibiscus flower. We have this sort of soft pastel colors. We have the fog coming in, yet we see so much detail on that tree and the little bench and table that are at the bottom of the tree, if you haven't noticed that. So again, just an incredible, beautiful scene, incredible light, just that little bit of reflection at the bottom with that fog in the on the water. Really, it's just a peaceful image to look at. This is an image I would print and frame and put in my office. And when I'm feeling a little stressed, I would just glance at it and it would calm me right down. Our horizon is kind of halfway through the image, which is typically not something that we want to do, but in this image it works. I think that having that balance between the upper part of the image and the bottom part of the image kind of works and make this image that much more peaceful and still.
I would agree with everything. I just love the feel. I'm a sucker, as Susan knows. I'm a sucker for the sunrise and sunset pictures where we have this beautiful orange glow. And also the edges are a little bit darker than like the center of the frame, either naturally or whatever. So that really kind of adds to the impact of this image. And Phyllis Webster, who was here, said, so beautiful and peaceful, wonderful. So Danton did, I think, an amazing job, and we're really glad to see. I don't think he's been here before. He just posted this last week. So very good. One, I might have mixed up the order. Was this in Tough Love or Love?
That is in Tough Love.
Okay, so okay.
One, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so we did 5 loves already. So
Yeah.
now the Tough
Okay,
Love is coming next.
So here we go. Tough love. Here we go. Get ready.
Tough love. So, and again, we try to make these constructive, and I pick images that I like, because I think, people, I want to push people to get there, to make that extra effort to get the better image. Even when you have an image that may be really good, it just needs that little extra push. And here's one where, oftentimes, we like to say, or I like to say, especially in my workshops, that, people shouldn't do butt shots, right? But for birds and for certain animals, a butt shot actually can be a good thing, because we will see a lot more detail, a lot more interest in those feather patterns in the back of the bird, especially on the tail and on the primary feathers, versus like the chest of the bird. So from that perspective, I'm not faulting the image. I think that it's nice that we can see all that detail, all that texture, all that pattern on the back of this blue jay. However, there are two things here that I would encourage Raymond, I think it is, right? To think about when he's trying to make these images, or if he's got more blue jays or some other animal or birds coming to his bird bath, is try to capture the animal doing, kind of looking towards you. I like to shoot animals where they're faced no more than 90 degrees away from me. So you want it to be looking straight to the right or more towards you, doing that over the shoulder look, so that we can connect with our subject. Right now, this bird is kind of looking away, and it looks like it's, wanting to take off and get away from the viewer of the image. So that's one. The other thing I would work on and try to, I would try to change on the image is, right now this bird is centered. We want to put that bird a little bit on the left side of the frame, giving more room to the right, to the way that the bird is looking. Because when you put that animal, the subject, straight in the middle of the frame, it makes the image much more static. Removes that movement of the scene. And there's plenty of movement, implied movement here, because we have the ripples on the water, which are beautiful, and we have the bird kind of like showing intent that it's looking to go somewhere. But the fact that it's centered counteracts some of that movement in the scene and makes the image that much more static. So what do you think, Rick? Any comments?
No, I was just reading the other comments. I agree with what you said. Some people thought the same thing. It should be cropped. Some people think reminds of a bird in the rain, blah, blah, blah. Leaning to they thought the picture was a little lopsided. Well, that may or may not be true. Maybe the bird bath is lopsided because it looks like the bird is right side up.
Yeah, but the bird looks straight up and down. So I would go by the bird, not by the edge of the bird bath.
Yeah. But you know what? This is good. Would love your thoughts. And this is what's great about our phototherapy Facebook group. I was telling my friend Ron Clifford this today. I was just on his show. And, we have no politics here. It's all about photography, and it's all about sharing and giving. So if you want feedback to the people who are watching this right now, definitely put, something like this. Would love your thoughts and comments, because the feedback is very constructive and a lot of time, and very constructive and very helpful without being mean, like Alec was talking about before, right. The person who was having their pictures.
Right. As our friend Linda said, and, to comment to Juan, thoughtful feedback, right? There's thought into,
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Into what would make this, improve this.
Okay. So this is a mallard, an animal that we get to see all the time, right? And anywhere,
oh, yeah.
A lot of ponds and a lot of different locations. But there's a couple of things here that I want to address. And this is something that I see a lot of times when people are trying to get into animal photography, especially bird photography. My biggest issue with this image is that we're looking down at our subject. We almost never want to be looking down at our subject. We want to be shooting at about eye level. I like to go a little bit below eye level to elevate my subjects a little bit. When you're shooting down at your subjects, you're diminishing them. When you're looking straight at them or looking up at them, you're elevating them a little bit, making them look more impressive. The other thing that does in a situation like this is that, this is an ordinary scene that we see on every day, when we're by a little pond at a park or something like that. So it's something that it's very commonplace for us. By actually changing your perspective and shooting something from a perspective that we're not used to seeing, you make that an image that much more interesting and much more likely to captivate your viewer's attention. So think about that, getting down low, getting down at eye level, coming up with a different perspective than you're used to seeing something in everyday life. There's some issues here with exposure. The image is a little bit underexposed. It needs to be a little bit more better exposed. You get some of that water to come out. We get to see a little bit more of the head of the bird, as well as some of the more detail on the feathers. So you got to work on the exposure a little bit. But the number one thing that I would say is, make sure that you not only are shooting at least at eye level, but you try to find interesting angles on those subjects to make them interesting and not commonplace.
Agree. One of my salmonisms, we joke, we talk about my salmonisms. One is see eye to eye and shoot eye to eye. It's a very quick way to remember that you definitely, if you want, the more at eye level you are, the more the person looking at the photograph can relate to the subject and feel as though he or she is there and the animal's looking, at them. This is definitely like a snapshot looking down. But the colors are great, right? And I noticed a catch light in the eyes, that little dot of catch light. So that is something to look forward to. We have a nice little ripple here, like we had the ripple here. So I think just getting down just a little bit would have made a difference. Oh, Robin's been here before.
love this image. And, it's funny because does he say, I couldn't remember when I was reading it, does he say what kind of species it is? This almost looks like a tricolored heron, kind of leucistic tricolored heron, like kind of almost like an albino, but not quite.
He said it's a juvenile little blue heron.
Little blue heron.
He said.
Yeah, it interesting that it's so light colored. But it just, great image. I love the expression. I love the look. Couple of little things. There's, if we look in this image and we look at around the neck, we have all that grass on the left-hand side of that neck. That is a little distracting. Those are what I call collisions between, your subject and the background. That would be one area that I would work at trying to get that cleaned up. Whether, would have been better to do that when you were there. Hopefully wait till the bird moves a little bit to the left and you move a little bit to the left with it so you can get a cleaner background. So you got to be paying real close attention to those backgrounds because they're very, very important. If you have a distracting background, it can detract from your subject. So you could, as it is right now, you could go in and try to clone that out with Photoshop. That would not be. It'll be a little bit of work to do, but not terribly hard to do. The other pieces of grass that are behind it are a little bit, bothersome, but not as bad as the one that's in the front that's really doing that collision with the main part of the bird. So I would try to clean those up. And like we talked about earlier, we want to have a little bit more room on the left. This bird looks a little bit constrained in that frame. I'd like to see a little bit more room on the left-hand side. Give the bird a little bit more room to move into. In that face, you see how that head is at 90 degrees from us? That makes a really nice profile. We can see all those feathers on their head and really look nice and interesting and with a lot of texture. So that works well. If the bird had been looking away from us, we wouldn't see as much of that texture and interest on the head. So a little bit of room on the left and try to clean up here. Rick did this in the background. He's so quick at Photoshop. Look at that. He cleaned out that area in front. Look the difference that makes. Makes a huge difference in not distracting our view from the from our main subject.
Yeah, and I guess one of the other comments that came in, from Jack Lawless and balance, because he says that he loves the uniqueness of the bird, but the signature where it is a little distracting.
Right? Oh, that's
up there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't find that as distracting. I think that I would have toned it down a little bit, made it a little bit less prominent. But I personally don't find it that distracting. What I did like is Rob Smith's comment that he said that you can get these hybrid egrets So a hybrid between an egret and a heron. And I didn't think of that. So that may be what we're looking at here, a little blue with an egret hybrid.
Hey, I'm doing something now. What I was doing is it's not working. Well, actually working, but it's going to take too long. I was going to blur the background. I might blur the background a little. My tough love for this, in addition to what you said, my friend, is that, the feathers here are basically the same color as the feathers here, yet there is white as over here. So if you made a print of this, it would be as white as the paper if you put a white frame around it, or it'd be white, on the web. So I always, and I have examples in my tough love here, why it's so important to expose for the highlights, because they're not white. The feathers here on the front part of the neck there are not that white. But all the stuff actually that could be fixed. And here's how you would do it. You couldn't do it by reducing the exposure, and this would take some time to do it. You could see my cursor, Juan and Alex.
Yep.
What you could do is in Photoshop, after cloning out this, if you use your clone stamp tool and reduce the opacity, not like at 100%, put it at 20% or something, and click here and just move these feathers over there. You have to do it very carefully so it doesn't look fake or like Frankensteinish, as Juan has pointed out in some of the pictures in the past. But the point is really
basically adding back a little bit of texture onto that area that you lost.
Just a little, because you can't rescue this. I could see it's too far gone. Okay, Marley.
So Marley, beautiful image, and I love the setting. But there are a couple of things that I would change about the image to make it more impactful. One is, you see how we're so close on the left-hand side? We're very, very close to that edge, which makes it a little bit uncomfortable, if you will. We also have quite a bit of space between our main subject, the eland, and the bush on the right-hand side. I think the bush adds a lot to the scene because it gives you a little sense of place. So I wouldn't want to crop it out. So you have two options here. If you were able to do this while you were there, is move yourself a little bit to the left, and that would move your subject to the right in relation to the background. So that would have put the animal closer, change the perspective, and put that animal closer a little bit to that shrubbery that's on the right hand side. Or you could do it in Photoshop as well if you didn't have the opportunity to do that when you were there. So while you're in Photoshop, you may be able to reduce that space in between our subject, the animal, and the bush, and then add a little bit space on the left, and it would make a much more interesting and compelling image. So think about that. Think about the placement of your subjects within the scene. We do this. People do this when they're shooting models, right? You're directing the model to do this, to do that, to change the pose, to move to the right, to move to the left. Unfortunately, we can't do this with wildlife. I mean, we can try, but they're just not going to listen to us. They're going to do what they want to do. So we have to move instead of telling them to move. As like a fashion photographer tells the model to move, we wildlife photographers need to tell ourselves to move, to change the relationship between yourself, your subject, and that background. Change the perspective, change the arrangement of the scene. And this is one of the things that we're doing, and kind of like the next step that we take as we're progressing in our craft is composing these images. We can't tell our subjects what to do, but we can tell ourselves to move, to compose the image, to put the image together. And that makes a difference between a snapshot and a great shot, right? Is being able to compose the image and create a pleasant composition.
Yes. And now this picture, is shot at eye level, right? So we're seeing eye to eye. So it looks like the animal's looking at everyone who's watching the show. I'm not so sure about the bush on the right. I just tried moving it. It would take a little bit of work. But I love the connection. I love the connection and that expression of this majestic animal. Alec, I think you have a picture of one of the animals at Fossil Rim Wildlife Center like this, because they have these.
Right. Yeah.
They have kudus running around.
Right. Looking right at it. Yeah.
Look. Yeah. So maybe you want to share that on the Phototherapy Facebook group page. And we are talking about having our first phototherapy Facebook group live meeting at Fossil Rim. Okay, Juan,
We
your
are.
last tough love.
So again, this is one of my favorite subjects ever, right? It is the red foxes, and there's a lot to love about this image, and a lot of things that I would want to fix on this image. Certainly, our background is a little bit busy, and sometimes we take what we can get, right? We can't choose the background that is on a subject like this, especially when that background is so close. Even if we moved, if you had moved a little bit to the left, you may have been able to move that fox to that open space to the right of that we see on the right of the fox right now, and have maybe a little bit cleaner in the background. Right now we have those sticks coming out of the head, so that's something I would try to clean up. We have our subject in the middle, so that's something that I would try to fix as well. It's not quite in the middle, but it's a little bit to the middle because of the way that the tail is curving around. So maybe add a little bit more space, or move my subject a little bit to the left in the frame itself. But most importantly is this image it needs a little bit of white balance correction. It's a little bit too blue. You see how we have so much blue in the image. And yeah, this may have been early in the morning or late in the evening when we have blue hour, but we can, thankfully correct for that in Lightroom or Photoshop. So I did a couple of corrections in this image, and this is kind of a couple edits that I quickly did to correct some of the color, some of the blueness, but also bring in some of the shadows. If you look at the previous image is really dark, especially under the animal and especially around the eyes. Because we can't see the eyes, we cannot make a connection with our subject. If you switch to the next one, Rick, to the one that I corrected, you can see that now you can see those eyes. You can see a little bit of those eyes. You can see a little bit of a catch light in that right eye of the creature. And it allows us to make a much more meaningful connection with our subject.
Okay, I was I was listening to what you were saying, and I didn't do that. Let me just do that. Well, you have the correction. Let me just put in what a very quick cloning job would do. So here, and moved it off to the side.
Yep.
So we're able to get rid of all those distracting elements.
And
maybe I wouldn't take
at Photoshop cloning.
Well,
that was so quick.
I wouldn't take. Well, I do it a lot.
Yeah.
It's like the 10,000 hours Malcolm Gladwell in.
Right.
So
Right.
So anyway.
Excellent.
But
well, Rick, let's get going,
this,
because you have a bunch of images to do and not a lot of time.
I have my love. Okay. Now, again, as Juan said, we picked these images so we could learn something from them. And this I'll tell you why I picked this image. The highlights are a little overexposed, here. But here. Well, let me get this back here. I talk about this as a good exercise in this time of a lockdown. I say, get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea in the morning, and put it by a window where it's backlit, and see how the steam looks. Put it so it's frontlit. Put it as it's see how it looks when it's sidelit. And in all those different positions, the steam is going to look different. Here it's severely backlit, and I think it's a nice image. So yes, there are things we can do in the time of COVID to be creative. We can't, go to Yellowstone, for example. Well, I guess some people are. I'm not going to go and photograph, Old Faithful, right? I hear people walking around without masks, but that's another story. But what we learned in our kitchen, photographing steam, backlit, frontlit, sidelit, toplit, whatever, we can apply that technique. We can apply what we learned there to photographing, a geyser in Yellowstone or in Iceland. So it's really good to think about what we could learn at home. So when we can go out, we can do stuff. Juan, any comments? In addition to,
I love the color, and I love the way that light is coming in. I keep looking at that steam, trying to find different subjects in there, hidden in there. You're much better at that than I am.
Well, I don't see. Well, thank you, but I don't see anything in there. Anyway, let's have a challenge. Alec, I promise we're not going to add another topic. Where's Alec?
Oh, it's been about a month, so we could certainly add one.
Well, we're not going to add. But anyway, if our members could photograph their coffee cup from different, Phyllis, I'm challenging Phyllis. Who else is here, Alec, that we know? Who's a regular? Sissy?
Sissy's absent
Linda
without
Cullivan is here.
leave. Linda's here. Linda Cullivan is here.
Robert.
Robert Figueroa is here. A lot of regulars here.
Okay,
Rob
so
Smith. If it's a beverage shot, Freddie will be on it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, here's a special challenge. I gave Phyllis the challenge, and Juan will relate to this. Mike Cullivan is the master at steaming lobsters, right? So I'm challenging Mike. Linda, you could tell Mike. You could tell if he's not here. I want to see a picture like as soon as the top comes off the steamer, and maybe just put a lobster in there. And if my and
steam coming off of the lobster as eyes.
Yeah. We'll show that picture. We'll show that picture on the next show. Okay.
Shift it, send it down.
Anyway,
right.
This is Mike Edwards. Linda Lester. I know Juan likes bird photography, and this illustrates a lot of the things that Juan liked about this picture, and what he was talking about the fox picture, cropping it off to the side. So I think leaving the space here. Usually what's going on behind the subject isn't that interesting. We have the eye in sharp focus. The subject is separated from the background because the background's soft. We have from what I could see on my monitor, a really great exposure. We have the gesture, the feet aren't cut off. I could go on, but I just think that this is just such a beautiful picture. Gorgeous portrait. Background is sweet. Susan Duggan says it's a beauty. I would love to have a portrait like this.
Beautiful. All right, Rick. GVH. So Mike is there. He has accepted the challenge, and Linda has claimed the lobster.
Oh, okay.
So you will not be getting the lobster, but you will be getting the image.
Okay. So Juan.
So yeah, and I love the background, especially. I mean, I love the background because it gives us a sense of place in this image, and it's out of focus enough that it's not distracting, but in focus enough for us to tell that these are palmetto leaves, right? So I love the location and the environment that it's in. I would like to see a little bit more space on the right hand side, like you said.
And again, we're not looking down at the animal.
Right.
So and the eye is in such sharp focus. Okay, we're going to breeze through some of these. Okay, Joe, was Joe here before?
Yeah, I think I picked an image from him before.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah.
Heavenly Light. Well, I like the title. I like the image. I like it so much that they overexpose. I would have done HDR here because I don't think that even if you expose for the highlights, I think the shadows may have been too blocked up. That if you open them, you'd have like too much noise and maybe even see banding in these areas. So I think I might have done, if I had a tripod, HDR, but I just like the mood and the feeling, like you said about this picture, Juan, that you like the mood and the feeling. I think the mood and the feeling, the angle, it outweighs the little overexposed window here.
Yeah, and we had a comment from P. Stalter 1 asking, would a vignette be good in this image? And I think so. I think I think a vignette would really focus in on part of the image that is most interesting to me.
Okay, well, I'm going to try to multitask. I'm going to try to add a vignette. well, I don't think I can do it while I'm talking about another image. Maybe this is a little distracting, but it's just the light that Joe saw the rays.
Yeah, no, the light is
coming through. Like
actually,
this.
The question was on the bird shot, the vignette.
Oh, on the bird shot. Yeah, it probably would work if I have time to do this while talking about something else. I'll try.
There you go. Work some vignettes work on many image.
Yes, Ansel Adams said a picture's not done until you darken the edges, right?
Vignette can work on almost any image, right? It's just a matter of taste more than anything.
And sometimes the reverse, vignette. I've seen this, lighten the outside to draw attention to the image is interesting. So, Mike, when you're doing your lobster steam picture, we want to see a vignette. Okay, this is what I love about this, Juan and Alec and everyone. We're friends with all these people, and we just do it for fun, right?
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
This is so much fun. Okay, Dave Norris. I just love this close up, and I love the title, Another Dimension. I'm sure Juan, our resident naturalist, knows exactly what this is and the background. He could name the leaves and
this
and
is a
all.
milkweed pod, actually.
See,
And there's
I
an
knew
aphid
it.
on it right now on the right hand side. See that little orange bug on the right hand side?
Yeah. That
Oh,
looks
what
cool.
good eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Juan, is it a male or female? Come on.
Well, that
Come
little
on.
dot on the head tells me. No, I don't know.
Well, I learned. No, this is another reason why I like this. I learned so much, not only about photography, but about different subjects like this aphid here. It's actually, I think, a Chinese aphid. You were talking about the mantis here, Juan. That's like, not the endemic species. This aphid actually was brought over on the Mayflower.
Oh, really?
And it was actually on a sack of flour in the month of May, which is why it was called. Okay, enough is enough.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay. You went too far the deep end.
All right, kids.
Okay,
Focus.
I like this picture. It's I might have made it a little darker, so you could see the highlights, but I just really like this. I guess, I look at all the comments where he said another dimension. I thought that was really cool. It is like another dimension. It's looking into another world that we don't normally see. Okay, my tough love here. So I'm going to start out actually with some pictures that I'm giving tough love and love at the same time for the same image. So Colleen Parker posted this picture. Juan, you've been to Antarctica. You ever see anything like this? Like,
Oh my God, that's awesome. Beautiful.
Hundreds of penguins, jumping, trying to jump on this giant iceberg, which I guess broke off because this is floating down like in the middle of in nowhere. So I like this image. I haven't seen anything like that. But we talked about Juan enhanced this picture to make it a little brighter. I've talked about this before on the podcast. The first thing I do when I look at one of my images is I check the histogram. And so I check the histogram, and as you can see over on the right here, I just, what this is telling us is that the whites aren't whites because the shadow side is over here, the highlight side is over here. And, because I've been doing this a lot and I look at the computer, my monitor a lot, and I've been to Antarctica, I could see if a picture's like a little dark. So I guess this was, and a little dark, and the ice really isn't that blue. So what I did is I just moved the highlight slider inside the triangle, and I was able to get this picture from this. Now, this picture has a nice mood. It has a nice feeling, and half our viewers may like this picture better than this picture. But I think if you're with the scientists, and the scientists were publishing a scientific paper on blue ice, they would go for this one because this is really more how it looks, but this is more artistic. And I know Juan's going to say he noticed the horizon line tilted.
Yeah, Phyllis bit me to it in the comments, but yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Phyllis said, I thought Rick was going to mention the horizon.
I was
Hey,
going to
Rick,
leave it up to
we're
Juan.
coming up on 7 minutes left here, so.
Yeah, okay, we're going to go through. Okay, my friend John Van Land, he's been on
beautiful
several.
shot.
Isn't this a beautiful shot? I mean, I photographed hummingbirds. I don't have anything near as good as this. But this is love, tough love. So, and then this section of my little segment here is, loving and tough love, the same one. So I looked at this picture. I love the catchlight in the eyes, of course, the gesture, the ballet. Each one of these, the background, each one can make up the focus and whatever. Anyway, this was a little overexposed. Now I overdid it so people could see what I did, but again, there's really there's no detail here. So I just darkened it a little bit. I also increased the saturation just a little bit. Again, that's subjective, but again, just talking about the ice. If you're working with a scientist, and I don't know how many of our members work with scientists, and notice the the Mayflower aphids. A scientist would want to see detail here. So always expose for the highlights. So in a situation like this, you're not going to be able to check your histogram. check your highlight alert maybe. So just start out shooting underexposed in a little one. When you shot slides, when you shot Kodachrome 64, did you usually shoot it at 80? I always did.
Well, I used Velvia and
Okay.
Provia, not so much Kodachrome. So
Did you
and
underexpose a little?
No, yes, well, yeah, because we are always, it was so easy to blow out your highlights, right?
Yeah, always. Yeah, very easy. So anyway, it's just something to look for. I love, again, this is the love and the tough love. Okay, this picture by Ted Johnson. The mood and the feeling is great, and this is the but, we really want to expose for the highlights. So you might need HDR here, but if not, you'd have to underexpose, I think, about, maybe three stops to get this not blown out, because this white is the same size, same white as over here. Agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and this is tough, right? This is why you need to shoot HDR, because that light is so bright compared to everything else that it's hard not to blow it out.
Yeah, it's much easier to take a sunrise picture before sunrise, much easier to take a sunset picture
Right.
after sunset, right?
That's right.
Okay, this picture by Roger Thompson. The bird is totally sharp. It looks awesome. We have the catch light in the eyes, but there's too much noise in the background. He did some processing here, and I don't know exactly what he did, but the contrast range, I think, was increased too much, is one thing. Because if we zoom in, we could see these tiny little halos. Juan and I have talked about this before. We could see halos right around here, which shows that either could have, I don't think it was HDR, but this is what happens when you try to compress the brightness range of the scene too much. So the background actually almost looks like it's in a studio. When I saw these, I thought they were shadows from over here, which I don't think they are. So anyway, the bird is nice. All this stuff like over here is not really adding to the scene. So I would crop out a lot of that. And that's about it. Juan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's too many distracting elements that are pulling me away from my subject. All those branches are really, even though the light is nice, the way the light is falling on our bird, the lines are too distracting to me, especially those dark ones, and it's kind of weird
like
because
shadows.
They look like the same. They kind of look like shadows because they're bigger than the ones in the front. So I don't know what's going on there. It's a little bit weird and distracting. And I think that, maybe one of the things that happened while we are seeing those halos is because the image was really underexposed to begin with.
Yeah.
And they try to bring out a lot of that exposure out. And, when you're doing that with different luminosity values in the background versus the branches in the foreground, you end up with a lot of those halos.
Absolutely. Okay, one more by Chris Hansen. You got a lot of likes on this one. Some nice comments. Beautiful, fantastic. Love this. And I'm going to just end up here with this. So really combining a lot of the things that we've said.
Beautiful.
If it doesn't add to the scene, I don't know if, some people may like all this stuff. I like to shoot like a little tight. Again, the picture was underexposed, like this one, Juan said, was probably underexposed. So I moved that triangle slider underneath here. And then I also lightened the head just a little bit. It looks soft here because I cropped it. I'm sure if it were the original.
And you see the other difference in the one on the right is that we can see more clearly that eye because you brought out, you made the adjustments to the exposure, and that brought out the eye, which allows us to connect more with our subject. Beautiful background. Just absolutely gorgeous background.
Yeah, don't you love that? I mean, that background is really, really awesome. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. How do I do that? And
all done,
it's done. I stopped.
Yep.
So anyway, thank you guys for.
Well, thanks for everybody that joined us. It was kind of slow going at the beginning. We had when we started, we only had 10 people. We're now we went up to almost 50 folks joining on. So that was great. And a lot of feedback from folks. I love when people are giving us feedback and giving us answering questions or giving us suggestions to what we're talking about. So I really, really like that. I hope you guys enjoyed it and you got something out of it.
Yes, it was a ton of fun. And Alec, you want to end up with telling people what's going on with the next show? The next two shows,
Yeah.
you and Linda and Phototherapy
Yes.
Live.
Yes. So yeah, it looks like in the comment in the chat, everybody enjoyed themselves today. Our next event next Monday, Linda and I will be doing a meditation Mondays. We've got to finalize the time because I've got a conflict, but once we get that straightened out, we will post an announcement, but rest assured that it will be available by Monday night on the YouTube channel. So we've got to work that out. And then we will be returning 2 weeks from tonight. So that would make it December 17th. Right. And we haven't decided yet.
I just looked at the calendar. Yeah.
But that might be our last show of the year, unless you guys want to plan a New Year's Eve spectacular.
We'll see.
You know, one of the things with Rick, we talked about doing maybe we should do something special for the last show of the year. So let's talk about that and come up with something neat and different.
Okay, we'll do. Well, thank you, everybody. Stay safe and hang in there during these crazy times.
Thanks, folks. Take care.
So long, everyone.